Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Aamir Abbas, and today, once again, we have with us Dr. Usman and Raza. And in this session, we are going to. I'm sorry for this interruption because my mobile phone was turned on, so I apologize for that. So, in this session, we are going to discuss how to talk about some basic tool, which is. I'm just a minute. Just apologize right from the beginning because there are some technical issues which are going on. And so in this session, we are going to discuss how to effectively use the most basic time and task management tools. That is a to-do list. With us, we have Dr. Usman Raza, and who is a master of managing his time effectively. He holds graduate degrees from 3 different fields, from the top universities of the world. And he has been an academic researcher, manager, and a thought leader, and has been doing all this while working full time. He has been having a full-time jobs and spending time with family. So thanks a lot, Dr. Usman Raza, for giving us time once again on a weekend morning.
Sure. Thanks very much. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so we are going to move towards our first question. Let's start with the basics first. Why do we need to talk about to-do list?
Yeah, thanks, Aamir, for having me here. It's great to be here, and it's a great topic to talk about. Now, even though this seems like a very simple thing, to-do list, everybody knows what's a to-do list, but there are some nuances to this which make a difference in how effective this tool can be for you. And there are many bad ways of doing it, and there are some good ways of doing it. And if you have used to-do lists that never get completed, or you have to-do lists that don't tell you what's the most important thing to do, you may have to-do lists that are just too long. They keep getting long and long, and you never get to the end. You may have to-do lists that are just too vague. It's a hodgepodge of, brush my teeth and buy a new car and everything else in between. That's a problem. That's not a good to-do list. So that's why we need to talk about how to use this tool effectively. This is one of those things in life that seem very straightforward and simple, but there are some basic principles about how to use it effectively, which make a big difference. And the other reason I wanted to talk about this, since it's the beginning of this series that we're going to do on time management and task management, this is one of the basic tools. If you are trying to be more productive and you want to get started with more organized way of managing your time and managing your life, the simplest basic thing that you can start with is a to-do list, and that's the easiest thing to get started with. So that's why I think it's an important thing to talk about.
Okay, so now we move towards, as you have given the basic introduction and set the stage for a further discussion, that what is a to-do list? Can you give us a basic introduction of this tool?
Sure. So to me, to-do list, what's a to-do list? You can have any kind of list with different tasks defined in there, but then there's a question of what do you call as a task. So that's important. To-do list is something that you use every day. It's supposed to be a short list, and you're supposed to ideally get to almost the end of your to-do list by the end of the day. And for the next day, you refresh. And if you're using a digital tool or a paper tool, however you're doing your to-do list, you're supposed to refresh every day. Some people use like a weekly to-do list, which is fine as well. But the idea is you want to differentiate to-do list from a project plan. So to-do list cannot hold your life plan. It cannot be that. So you need to separate that. That's a different level of thinking when you're thinking about how do I plan a complex project. So that is not the place for a to-do list. That's a different mode of thinking. You're gonna have to take out time to do the project planning, and then out of that larger project, you may have 20 tasks, and some of those might come into your to-do list.
Right. So how does this relate to time management? Because that is the umbrella topic which we are talking about. So how does those two things dovetail with each other?
Yeah, so any given day when you get started, it's very easy to get derailed by whatever is coming at you. And it could be as soon as you open your email inbox, you look at 20 different emails that have come in, you just start off. That's going to derail your progress. You're going to be doing things that may not be the most important things that you need to do. So to-do list is just kind of your daily guide on what are the most important things that I need to work on first today. Whether it's something like preparing for a presentation or preparing for a meeting or studying for something or following up with somebody that you had sent an email to or anything like that. But it's your daily guide. And if you consistently use this over time, over long term, it has a lot of benefits in keeping you focused on what you need to get done.
Right. So you are using a few words like and I can think of a few synonyms as well. For example, tasks, notes, reminders. So what does the to-do list contain? And my second question is that how do you differentiate between the three items?
That's a great question, and that's one of the reasons why people try to use to-do lists and try to do too many things with the same tool, and it doesn't end up being very effective. So if you have in the past tried to use to-do list and then you've given up because it doesn't work for you, this may be one of the key reasons, because maybe you're trying to use the to-do list to capture different types of things. So you talk about notes. Notes are, you're in a meeting, you're taking notes, or you talk to somebody on the phone, you found something interesting, you take a note, or you want to just keep it as a reference. That's a different kind of thing. Versus if you're in a meeting and there's a task come out of it, that means that you have to take some action, or somebody has to take some action, or you have to follow up with somebody. That's a task. That should go on a to-do list. Maybe not for that day, but for another day. Then reminders are just, it could be anything. So reminder could also be something that could potentially go on your to-do list. I like to keep reminders in a system where it just gives me a reminder, like my calendar or my to-do list, which I use a tool for. There's a separate section for reminders, so I use that. But the important thing to note is you should only have tasks, actionable things that you can do in your to-do list. Anything else, whether it's some interesting note that you got from somewhere, something from a meeting or from some conversation, or something like you found an interesting article on the internet and you want to just save that link, to-do list is not your place for saving that. I think that should be obvious. So we want to keep it clean. We want to keep it limited to things that are actionable.
Right. And again, like I will have an annual plan, I will have a monthly plan, I will have a 5 years plan, and I will have a weekly plan, and then so you're saying that the to-do lists are something which you make a daily and update it daily. So how do you recommend, like how should we make them? Should it be daily or weekly or long term? And how does that relate to your long-term plans?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it depends on how advanced you are in your organizing systems. If you are already a very organized person and you have been doing annual planning or monthly planning or quarterly planning for yourself in some way, then you may already have a good set of projects that you know that you need to do in this year, this quarter, this month. And that's a great place to start. If you're on the other end of the spectrum where this is the first time that you might think of trying a to-do list, then you can get started with that daily level of, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow, the next day, and the day next after that. So I prefer the to-do list to be at a daily basis, especially if you're going to use a paper tool. Then I would recommend you use it for a daily kind of cadence, and then you refresh every day, create a new list every day. You can use digital tools where you can have the same list and just keep updating that. That's fine too. But the point is, you want to keep it to ideally to a daily level. But if you want to go more than that, I wouldn't recommend anything more than weekly. And in fact, I think one of the most effective things that you can do for improving your time management and life management is spending some time in what David Allen calls as a weekly review. And this is something that I didn't take so religiously for a long time, but I've started doing this myself very frequently now, or regularly. So on a Sunday afternoon, it will take me maybe 1 or 2 hours even sometimes to go through all my projects that I need to worry about, all the things, look at my next week's calendar, any commitments, whether office related or at home or anything else. And I have to create my to-do list for the next day, but also something I call as the most important goal for the week. I call it the weekly MIG. That also goes on my to-do list if it's something that could be done any day of the week, but I need to keep it top of mind. So that's my process for creating the to-do list, but it's for me, it's a daily kind of thing. I have to look at it every day and refresh every day.
Right. So as a number of people are watching us live right now, so if you're live and if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments and we'll be taking the questions in the end. And with this, we will move our discussion forward. And you talked about the paper-based versus digital tools. So which one would you prefer? You recommend a preference of one tool versus other?
So yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends on your context. For people like me who are working in software industry and in a place where almost everything is digital, it's easy to use a digital tool versus a paper tool. That doesn't mean I don't use paper tools, but for my to-do list, I use a tool that is named as todoist.com. You can check it out. It may not be for everybody, but I found it very flexible. And one disclaimer I'll give is I have tried many different kinds of tools for task management before. I think if you name any tool, I must have tried it, unless it was born in the past few months or past couple of years maybe. But the point is, it depends on who you are and what your workflow is. If your workflow is cutting across digital and paper world, then you need a tool that in both worlds for capturing and using it. If you're primarily digital, then something digital would make sense. If you're primarily working with non-digital world, then it's a choice for you. But if a lot of inputs that you're taking or a lot of planning that you're doing is on paper, it might be just easier to use paper. And I've talked to many people about this. Some people actually feel that it's good to have it on paper because you can easily separate work life from your family life. And so if it's on paper and it's all on your work desk, the moment you close the door, it's gone, and you can plug out of that and you can focus on other things easily. So there are some good benefits to having it on paper.
Right. So with another reminder to all of you who are online that this is going to be a series which we want to continue, and in each session we'll be focusing in one aspect of different personal development tools. So and these will be announced on my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, please feel free to subscribe it. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment box. We'll be taking questions in the end. So taking our discussion forward to the next level, and there has been a problem which I personally have faced, and I'm sure that many others have also faced, is that at times the to-do list gets so long that you have problem in prioritizing issues and then the tasks, and you have problem in completing them. So what do you recommend related to the length of the to-do list?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think a lot of people start using to-do lists, and then the list gets longer and longer. Things don't get done, and that the to-do list, instead of something which should be a motivating tool, it becomes a tool that demotivates you. Actually, right? Every time you look at your to-do list, it's a long list, and you get demotivated to do anything. So the key is it really depends on your velocity of finishing work and the granularity of tasks that you are defining for your to-do list. Now, velocity is a term I've loosely borrowed, perhaps not fully accurate for this analogy, but from Scrum methodology, which is used in software development. It's meant to say how fast you go through your list. So you have to look at your pace and your speed. If you are able to do 10 tasks in a day, usually you finish 10 tasks in a day, then that should be perhaps, or close to that should be the size of your list. And if you're putting more things there than you can finish in a day, then you need to think about it. What's going on? Is it that you're just putting too much things in there, or are you procrastinating with some of those things, and you are either unsure of getting started on some of those things, or maybe it's a task that is not defined properly. So that was the other piece that I talked about, granularity of the task. How specific in how much detail have you defined the task?
Right, and thanks for bringing that point because that is very much pertinent to my next question. The to-do list can be having very less details, not very specific, but it can be extremely detailed and distracting. So what level of granularity of the tasks should we mention in the to-do list?
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the nuances that I mentioned earlier that are there to to-do lists. Granularity means how specific or detailed the task is that you've defined. So for example, brushing your teeth is pretty granular. I don't think that you can go further and one step down and say how I'm going to brush my teeth. That you can, create further steps below that. But I think everybody knows when you say brush your teeth, what does that mean? You need to do some action, and you know that. So it's already pretty granular. While if you compare that with something like, I want to improve my oral health, that's not even a project, that's a goal. That's something that you would think of, this year I'm going to improve my oral health. How are you going to improve your oral health? That might generate some ideas and some projects. And those might then contain some tasks that are specific enough to go on your to-do list. So if you have something like that on your list, then that's a problem. So you need to get rid of that. That is not a to-do list level task. It's a goal. And sure, the goal can be important for you. And if it's important, then you need to think about what are the tasks that you need to do to achieve that goal. But the goal itself is not an action. And if you have many of these vaguely defined things in your to-do list, that's going to make you not do them. Every time you look at them, you will be confused. Okay, what exactly is the next physical action that I can take? It will not be clear for you. And this is one of the secrets, I would say, of making these lists effective. So you need to know exactly what the action is that you're talking about, and the challenge here is that you have to think beforehand. You need to define very clearly what it is that you need to do. So, for another example, sell my car is not a well-defined task. Why? Because it's not actionable as a whole in itself, because you need to do many different things in order to achieve that or complete that project. So sell my car, I would think of that as a project because it has multiple steps. And I'm kind of roughly following David Allen's GTD methodology. If people are interested, they can look up David Allen, Getting Things Done. It's an excellent way of looking at time management and how you can improve that. But for people who are not familiar with that, I'm just introducing this in a light way. So for the example I was talking about, selling a car is a project. It has many tasks within this. So, for example, posting an ad on parkwheels.com is a task. Taking pictures of your car is a task, and things like that. So those are tasks. And if you have a sell my car on your to-do list, it's going to be hard to get started. But if you have something like take pictures of my car, that's much easier to get started with. You'll be more motivated because it's clear what you need to do next.
Right. So what about the routines? For example, I will be exercising, I will be doing meditation, I will be, as you said, that I will be brushing my teeth. Do they have any place in the to-do list or not? Like, or we shouldn't have, or they do not have any place in the to-do list?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because these are tasks. If you go back to the definition of task, brushing your teeth or doing meditation or offering prayers for that matter, these are tasks. Makes sense. But think a little bit more about this. These are also habits that you want to have. So these are things that you're going to do every day in a routine, regular fashion. So in my opinion, these should not be on your to-do list. These should be, if you already have that habit, it should not be anywhere in your, taking any space in your brain. You just go and do it as part of your routine. Then that's perfect. If it's something that is not yet a habit, you're trying to build a habit, you might want to put it in a recurring reminder system, or even put it on your calendar until you make it a habit. Then there are other things like, I have to take some medicine every day. That's something that I don't want to miss, for example. And even though it's a recurring task, I might still keep it in my to-do list. So the idea is that you don't want to clutter your to-do list. You want to keep it as simple and as short as possible. You want it to be focused on what you need to get done in a given day. So if you can remove things that are routine, regular, recurring things, you can put them in some other system which will just remind you, even if it's an alarm, a daily alarm with a message on your phone, or it's something that you put on your calendar as a recurring event, or something else. That's better than putting it on your to-do list every day. Because if you think about routine tasks on to-do lists, your to-do list might just get filled all with routine tasks. There's so many things we do as a habit every day.
Right. So the next step or the next question pertains to the order. Like, obviously we have to prioritize something versus other. For example, we have something related to my personal goal or something that my boss wants me to do. So obviously some of them will have higher priority, and some of them will be urgent and non-urgent. So how do you classify the to-do list to answer these questions?
Yeah, so that's actually, it might seem straightforward, but if you get into the mechanics of this, there are some nuances to this as well. So very simply, priority matters. So it's common sense that you should order the things from most important to least important. That should be the simple order. But then there's something that David Allen talks about, which is called the context. So maybe just thinking of an example, maybe you have to buy medicine from a shop, which is very important for you to do today, but you're not going to do it until you're done with your workday. So it might be top of your list, but it's not until the afternoon or evening when you're done with your office work, then you're going to go. So some people try to categorize things within to-do list. I would say it helps you, and I do it myself. I have two categories. One is work and one is everything else. So I would suggest, if you're going to do that, keep the categories to the minimum, maybe 2 or 3, but not more than that, because then it's getting out of hand, and it's not a to-do list anymore. So you need to think about what is important. You also need to think a little bit about context. If there are some big contexts, like this can only happen when I'm at the grocery store, this can only happen when I'm at work or at my laptop, then you need to consider that. But above everything else, when you say priority, that means that you already know what is important for you. And that is a big question. That is a very big question. For some people, it's straightforward. They know exactly what is the most important thing for them, and they don't care about anything else. So it's easy for them to focus. But sometimes it's not very straightforward, and you would want to think a lot about what is important to you. So what is important to you also changes with the time horizon. For the daily to-do list, it's the time horizon is a day, or at most a week. If you're thinking about the week ahead, what is the most important thing you need to get done in this week? But if you're talking about the next 1 year, that's a different level than that. You're actually beyond to-do list. You're not designing your to-do list when you're thinking about a year. You're talking about projects, plans, goals, those things.
Right. So again, when you're talking about the timeline, so should you make a to-do list every day, or some people have a to-do list on weekly basis where they have weekly calendars or monthly calendars? So how should that part work?
So the key is, for any tool, whether you're doing it for to-do list or it's a general idea, you need to make it as easy as possible for you to use. If it's difficult to use, you're not going to use it. You're going to give it up after a few days. You'll be done with it. So you need to make it as easy as possible. So my answer to that question is, whatever is easy for you, you should do. If it's easier for you and it's refreshing for you to create a new list every day, that's fine. If it's just easier for you to edit and update the one that you're using every day and it's a digital tool, then that's fine for you. So whatever makes it easier. And also for some people, creating a new list is refreshing, as I mentioned. So maybe that's a motivation for you. Whatever makes you do it is good.
Right. And there are type of tasks which I've also experienced, and I'm sure you've also experienced that as well. Like, you write them daily, but you never end up doing them, and they keep on getting pushed to the subsequent day. What do you think about them? Are they important? Should we include them in your to-do list or not?
So I alluded to this a little bit earlier. There might be tasks that are not getting done. There could be many different things, many reasons for that. Either your list is too long, you're just putting too much on your plate, and that's never going to happen. So you need to reduce what you think you can do. But there could be other reasons. You are not starting off with somebody because you just didn't define it correctly. For example, if you have sell my car on your list, and every time you look at it and you're like, oh my, this is a big piece of work, I can't do it today. That's because you didn't break it down into actual tasks. And thirdly, it may not be something that is actually important for you. So when you are making your list, you thought it's something very interesting and important, you should get it done. But after a few days, you're not so excited about it. And now you're like, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. And so at that point, you need to think whether it's really important for you or not. And if it's not, it needs to drop off, or it needs to go in some other bucket of someday, maybe, maybe when you have extra time, you can take a look at that. And actually, I was reading this book from Peter Bregman. It's called 18 Minutes, another good book I would recommend. He says if it gets pushed 3 times in a row, then you need to decide what to do with it, whether it stays or it drops off, or you need to do something about it. So don't keep it there for too long, because then it becomes a demotivating factor for you.
Right. I think a number of people are watching us live, but there has not been any question, because the fact being that this is a new topic, I'll recommend. And if you have any questions later, we will be coming back to this session on a weekly basis, and we'll be continuing and building up on these concepts. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments. And my last question is that you alluded to some of the books. And would you recommend any books, online resources, or articles related to the matter which the viewers can benefit from?
There are many books on this topic. By topic, I mean not to-do list, but time management in general, or personal development and self-development. in this kind of category. There are many books, many good books. I would say the three that I would recommend today. Number one, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Absolutely recommend it for everybody. This is one of the best books that I've read. And it's not just about time management, it's about life management. And it's just a great book for people to read. And the second book I would recommend, if you want to get a little bit more advanced in your time management skills, and you are somebody who is dealing with lots of different kind of projects, and you're very kind of in the game, and you're trying to get ahead, you're also competitive, you're trying to get many things done, and you need to be very organized. David Allen's book on getting things done is one of the best books that I've read. And these two books I recommend in combination, not as independent of each other. They focus on different aspects of time management and life management, and both are excellent books. And then third book I recently looked up was 18 Minutes by Peter Bregman. I think it has some good nuggets. I don't place it at the same level as Stephen Covey or David Allen's books, but it has some interesting thoughts and ideas on how to tackle some of the day-to-day things, and I think it's a nice read.
Right. So I think we have a comment or a question is from Nazia S, and she's saying, absolutely right. If you're unable to follow your to-do list, one should keep it or not. I think you alluded to it, but would you quickly like to repeat what you said?
Yeah, I think it's the same idea. If you are unable to follow your to-do list, and Nazia, this is for you. If you're not able to follow it, or you're finding that you keep having long lists that don't get done, I think the question is, you need to look at what you're putting in the list. Does it make sense or not? Are you, like I said before, are you putting too many things in there? Are you putting things there that are actually not important, but you just put in there because you wanted to keep track of something, or you thought it was a nice thing to, maybe you should do it? So that's part of it. But the other thing you really should look at is, are the things that you're putting in there, are there actually tasks, or they are something else? So that's one of the things that a lot of people miss, is you put in there things that are not tasks, and then it's hard to do them because they're not tasks. So you need to think about, if it's a project, actually, it's like a big piece of work. You need to break it down.
Right. And I think the next comment is, sometimes at the end of the day, 1 or 2 tasks remain in our to-do list, and so person feel discouraged by it. And this is from Aras Fatma. And so what do you think about it? That, okay, like things do happen, like, okay, is your to-do list an inflexible document, or like you should be discouraged by it, or like you can, okay, that's the idea of the to-do list, that, okay, delegate it to a subsequent day? What do you think about this aspect of it?
So I have a hunch here that for this one, if you are feeling discouraged that you didn't do 1 or 2 tasks on your list, you need to ask yourself, are you discouraged just because this was the last 2 things that you could have done and you didn't do it? In which case, I think it's okay. But the more important question is, was this something that you actually thought was really important and you didn't do it? Because if that's the case, then I think you're putting other things ahead of that important thing. If it was really important and you did it, but you still had 3 more things left on your list, but they were not the most important things in your day, you would still feel very good. This is my kind of prediction. If you know intuitively and intrinsically inside you, you know what, today these are the 2 things that are most important for me, and I want to get these done. But there are also these 5 other things which I will try to do, and I think I'll do those, but I may not get to all of them. But if you do those most important things, you will feel good about that day. You will feel productive. You will feel that you've done some good work today, and you'll go to sleep better.
Okay, so then the next question is, or comment is, in our context, we are not used to using to-do list, but now I will definitely plan after this session. So that's encouraging for us as well. Do you want to say something on this one?
I would encourage everybody to use to-do list as a basic tool. If you have not used it, I think it will bring some organizing sense to your life. And it might feel a little difficult to get started, but once you get in the habit of it, you will feel that you don't have to try to remember everything in your head. And today's life is pretty busy for everybody. There's so much going on. There's so many things happening around us. The last thing we want to do is try to remember everything in our heads. So David Allen calls this distributed cognition, a term he pulled in from somewhere else, which means that things that you can put on a list and the list can remind you of what you need to do are great, because then you don't need to keep it in your head. Your head is meant for thinking, higher level thinking. Your head is not necessarily meant for remembering everything that you need to do. So if you can take it out of your head and you put it on paper, and you trust a paper or digital tool, and you trust that tool because you look at it every day and you have a reminder system, then you will feel more relieved and you will feel more relaxed, because your head has more space to think about things that actually matter. So for example, your brain should not be consumed by, oh, I need to take pictures of my car, and you think 10 times about that in your given day. It's on your list. You know that you're going to do it. When you get to it, you'll do it. You don't need to worry about it.
Okay, so somebody saying, wonderful topic explained by Dr. Usman. Thanks. I think it's a thank note to you. I am trying to locate another question which I've missed. Yeah, here it is. So awesome books, even its translations are available in Urdu. But I have a question is, okay, if you do not understand English, or you're not comfortable reading English books, then that is good for those people. But what do you think that when these kind of books are translated, a lot of the nuances are lost in the translation process? So what is your comment on this part?
I think it's nice to read these books. If you're having trouble understanding that book in English, you can go for a Urdu version or some other language, whatever language it is that you're comfortable in, and you can find resources in that language. That's great. I think I agree with you. It's not the same, but you still get a lot out of it. And reading books from good authors is like being in company of somebody who has had a lot of experience and thought, and they've put it together for you. So it's an excellent way of gaining knowledge and experience of somebody secondhand, So I would highly recommend, if you are having trouble with English version of a book and you can find Urdu version, just go for it. And it's not the end of the world, You read a book in Urdu, later you can go ahead and read it again in English if you feel like you want to do that. There are nuances between different cultures. So if you read something in English version versus Urdu version, there are some differences. It may not translate exactly all the sense there is, but the core messages are usually there.
Okay, so there's another question from really good topic. This is from Lara Mazhar, and she's saying, a really good topic. Can you give any idea what's the most effective tool/app for maintaining to-do list? I think you talked about it, but if you want to repeat it.
Yeah, so I would try to avoid giving a specific recommendation here. I think anything that works for you. The tool has to be easy enough for you to use every day. And if you're finding that it's actually more work to manage the tool than actually doing your tasks, then that's not the right thing. So in this vein, I have tried so many different tools out there, and I'm mostly a digital person, so I go for digital tools. So right now I'm using Todoist.com. People can check it out. It's Todoist.com. And I have my reasons for why I think this is a good tool for me. maybe another session we can go do on tools, and go in more detail of what matters when you're selecting a tool. But if you're getting started, anything is good to get started. Just get started with something, even if it's a piece of paper and you want to get started with that, that's the easiest way to get started.
Right. So that was a very effective short session from Dr. Usman. And before we call it a day, would you like to say something before our session ends?
I would just say, if you want to improve your life, change the way you organize your tasks and get things done, to-do lists are your first step to get started. Even if you have bigger plans, this is the first thing. So I would recommend and encourage everybody to start using if they're not using. If you're already using, think about what you're putting in there, how to make it more effective.
So this is, I think we'll take this final comment. It's not a question, just a comment. And it's saying that convincing mind to follow to-do list is challenging, but when it becomes a habit, it will help. I will definitely search and read those books. So thanks a lot, Nazia Hassan, for being a viewer. And once again, I will repeat that this is a new series of sessions where we will be having Dr. Usman with us on a new topic every week. I think we will see if the same time works. Then we will try to continue it on the same time on same day every week. And thanks a lot to all of those who have been actively engaged in this discussion and made this possible for us to make it interactive by asking so many questions in the comments. In the future, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, because that will also help us to shape our future sessions. And we can, if some of the aspects of this topic are getting more attention, or you people want us to focus on some aspect of this topic, we can have a specific session on that. With that, I would like to say thanks to Dr. Usman Raza for giving us time on this weekend morning. I think take care for the time being. Dr. Usman perhaps lost his connection shortly. I think, Dr. Usman, did you lost your connection? Briefly, right?
Yeah, I'm back now.
Yeah, okay. So thanks just saying thanks to Dr. Usman, and thank you everyone for listening to it. Take care. Bye, and Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.